I'm 73 years old, and I can tell you exactly how many years I wasted waiting for him to change. 47. 47 springs where I convinced myself this would be the year he'd see me. 47 winters where I fell asleep alone while he worked late. Or said he did. He never changed. And the worst part? I knew it by year 3. We met when I was 21, fresh out of secretarial school, wearing my mother's pearls and my grandmother's optimism. He was the assistant manager at the bank where I deposited my first paycheck. Dark hair slicked back with pomade that smelled like cedar and ambition. When he smiled at me across that marble counter, I swear the fluorescent lights dimmed and the whole room tilted toward him. 6 months later, we were married in my parents' backyard under a dogwood tree. I wore white lace that itched my collarbone all afternoon. He wore a navy suit that was slightly too tight in the shoulders. His vows were short. Mine were memorized from a bridal magazine. We cut the cake with my grandmother's silver knife, and when frosting smudged the corner of his mouth, I wiped it away with my thumb. He kissed my wrist. Everyone clapped. That night in the motel room with the scratchy floral bedspread, he told me I was the only thing that ever made sense to him. I believed him with my whole chest. The first 2 years were a blur of Sunday pot roasts and arguments about which couch to buy. We saved for a down payment on a house with blue shutters and a yard big enough for the children we'd have. 3, I wanted. 2 boys and a girl. He said he wanted whatever I wanted, but his eyes were always somewhere else when he said it. On the television, on the newspaper, on the window showing the driveway where his car was parked. I didn't notice yet, or maybe I did, but I was too busy being a wife to see I was married to a stranger. The first sign was his coffee mug. He drank it black. 2 cups every morning at exactly 6:47 a.m., standing at the kitchen counter in his undershirt and boxers, staring out the window at nothing. I'd wake to the sound of the percolator bubbling, that bitter, burnt smell filling our small kitchen. But one Thursday morning, I remember it was Thursday because the garbage truck always came early and woke me, I found his mug in the sink, still half full, still warm, lipstick on the rim, not my shade. Mine was cherries in the snow. This was darker. Plum temptation, or something like it. My hands went cold. I stood there holding that mug, turning it in the weak morning light coming through the curtains I'd sewn myself. I could hear him in the bathroom, humming, like nothing in the world was wrong. The water ran. The medicine cabinet clicked shut. I washed the mug. I dried it. I put it back in the cupboard with the others. I never said a word. The second sign was the way he stopped touching me in public. It happened so gradually I almost didn't catch it. First, he'd pull his hand away when I reached for it at the grocery store. Then he'd walk 3 steps ahead of me instead of beside me. By our 5th anniversary, we sat across from each other at the Italian restaurant downtown like business partners reviewing a contract. He ordered veal. I ordered chicken. We split a bottle of wine that tasted like pennies and regret. When the waiter asked if we were celebrating anything special, my husband said, "Just dinner. Not our anniversary, not 5 years, just dinner." I smiled at the waiter anyway, tipped him 20%, pretended the bathroom break I took was to powder my nose and not to cry silently into my fists in a stall that smelled like lemon disinfectant and someone else's perfume. The third sign was his keys. He started carrying 2 sets. One for the house, the car, his office. The other one, smaller, silver, with a rabbit's foot keychain I'd never seen before. It appeared in his jacket pocket one autumn when the leaves were turning that burning orange that looks like the world is ending beautifully. I found it doing laundry. I held it up to the light. The rabbit's foot was dyed pink, cheap, the kind you'd win at a carnival. I'd never been to a carnival with him. He hated crowds, but someone had. I put the keys back in his pocket. I washed his shirts. I ironed the collars the way he liked. I made dinner, meatloaf, his favorite. when he came home at 9:30 instead of 6. I didn't ask where he'd been. I just reheated his plate in the oven until the edges of the meatloaf turned black and crusty. He ate it without complaining, said it was delicious, and I absolutely knew, that the worst was still to come. The discovery came on a Tuesday in March, 10 years into our marriage. I was 31 years old. I'd stayed home sick with what I thought was the flu. My body ached. My throat felt like I'd swallowed broken glass. I called into the insurance office where I worked and spent the morning in bed, drifting in and out of fever dreams where the wallpaper pattern turned into screaming faces. Around 2 in the afternoon, I dragged myself downstairs for water. That's when I heard his car in the driveway. He wasn't supposed to be home until 6. The front door opened, but he wasn't alone. I stood frozen at the bottom of the stairs in my nightgown, my hand gripping the banister so hard my knuckles went white. I could hear them in the living room. Her laugh first, high and bright like wind chimes made of glass. Then his voice, lower, saying something I couldn't make out. Another laugh, the sound of the couch springs creaking. My heart was a fist punching my rib cage from the inside. I should have walked in right then, should have thrown open that door and demanded answers, but I didn't. Instead, I crept back upstairs like a ghost in my own house. Each step took a year. The 4th stair creaked, that same creak I'd been meaning to fix for months, and I heard them go silent below. I locked myself in the bathroom, sat on the edge of the tub with my hand pressed over my mouth to keep from making a sound. The porcelain was cold against my thighs. I could hear everything through the old heating vents, every word, every breath, every lie. Does she know? Her voice, young, maybe 25. She doesn't ask questions. His voice, tired, familiar, mine. Don't you feel guilty? A long pause. I counted the seconds, 15 of them. Sometimes, he finally said, but she's comfortable. She has the house. She has her routines. She doesn't need me to be different. She needs me to be there, and I'm there. But you're here too. I'm everywhere I need to be. The couch springs again, fabric rustling. I pressed my forehead against the bathroom tile, cold white tile I'd picked out from a catalog, obsessing over whether to get the glossy finish or the matte, and tried not to vomit. They stayed for 43 minutes. I know because I watched the clock above the sink, each minute hand movement feeling like a bone breaking. When the front door finally closed and his car pulled away, I stayed in that bathroom for another hour. The fever had broken. I was drenched in sweat. My nightgown stuck to my back like a second skin. That night, he came home at his regular time, 6:15. I'd showered, done my hair, put on lipstick, made his favorite dinner again, pot roast with carrots and potatoes, the meat falling apart under the fork. We ate in silence. The only sound was silverware scraping plates and the kitchen clock ticking like a countdown. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw my plate at his head. I wanted to grab him by his perfect collar and demand to know when I'd stopped being enough, when he'd decided that our vows were suggestions instead of promises. But what came out of my mouth was, "How was work?" "Fine," he said, not looking up. "Busy." "That's good." "Yeah." More silence. He reached for the salt shaker. I watched his hand, the same hand that used to trace the outline of my face in the dark when we were newlyweds, and felt absolutely nothing. No, that's a lie. I felt everything. But it was all happening somewhere deep inside where words couldn't reach it. Like drowning in the middle of the ocean while everyone on shore thinks you're just swimming. I had a choice that night. I could confront him, pack a bag, call my mother, get a divorce and start over at 31 with nothing but my pride and a half-empty closet. Or I could stay. And here's the pathetic truth nobody tells you about betrayal. Sometimes you choose to stay not because you're strong, but because you're terrified. Terrified of being alone. Terrified of admitting failure. Terrified of the looks you'd get at church when you showed up without a husband. Terrified of your mother saying, "I told you he was too handsome to be faithful." Terrified of renting some sad efficiency apartment with thin walls where you could hear your neighbors fighting through the ceiling. Terrified of proving that you were exactly as disposable as you felt. So I made the decision that would haunt me for the next 37 years. I stayed silent. I told myself I was being smart, strategic. I'd wait for the right moment, gather evidence, make a plan. But those were just prettier words for coward. The truth was simpler and uglier. I was comfortable. We had the house. We had routines. We had Friday night dinners with his parents and Sunday mornings at church, and a joint checking account and a respectable life that looked perfect from the outside. And I was so tired, so endlessly, deeply tired of trying to be perfect. So I buried it. I buried the lipstick mug. I buried the carnival keys. I buried that Tuesday afternoon in March when I heard him tell another woman that I was comfortable, like I was a worn-in pair of slippers he couldn't quite throw away. I buried myself. Every morning I woke up next to him and pretended I didn't know. Every night I kissed his cheek and tasted my own surrender. Every year that passed, I told myself this would be the year I'd find my courage. This would be the year I'd demand better. This would be the year he'd change. But people don't change because you wait patiently for them to become who you need them to be. They just become more of what they already are. And I became more invisible. By year 15, he stopped pretending to work late. He'd just say, "I'm going out," and I'd say, "Okay." By year 20, we slept in separate bedrooms. By year 30, we were roommates with shared bills and separate lives, moving through our house like ghosts who died in different rooms and couldn't find each other in the afterlife. The worst part? I almost forgot what it felt like to be chosen, to be wanted, to be someone's first thought instead of their last resort. I forgot I'd ever been 21 and stupid and wearing my mother's pearls and believing in forever. He died last year. Heart attack. Quick. The doctor said he probably didn't feel much pain. I felt everything. Not grief, not exactly. What I felt standing at his funeral in my black dress, the same black dress I'd worn to his mother's funeral, his father's funeral, his brother's funeral, was the crushing weight of 47 wasted years landing on my chest all at once. The pastor talked about what a devoted husband he'd been. People nodded. Someone squeezed my hand. His secretary from the bank, a different one, they changed every few years, told me he'd always spoken so highly of me. I smiled. I thanked her. I stood there next to his casket with brass handles and lied with my silence one final time. Now I'm 73, and I live alone in the house with blue shutters that we bought for the children we never had. 3 bedrooms we never filled. A yard with grass I pay someone to cut because my knees don't work anymore. This morning, I stood in front of the bathroom mirror, the same mirror where I used to check my lipstick before he came home, making sure I looked presentable for a man who'd stopped seeing me decades ago. And I didn't recognize the woman staring back. Her face is all wrinkles and spots. Her hair is thin and gray. Her eyes are empty. She's me, but she's also every version of me I killed by staying. The 31-year-old who had time to start over. The 40-year-old who could have found someone who actually wanted her. The 50-year-old who could have traveled, learned to paint, moved to the coast, done anything except wait in an empty house for a man who was never really there. I killed her. I killed all of them, one silent year at a time. Yesterday, I was cleaning out his desk drawer, something I should have done months ago but kept putting off, and I found them. Dozens of them. Photographs, letters, hotel receipts, little pieces of all the lives he'd lived while I was home making pot roast and pretending everything was fine. There were 4 different women, maybe more. The photographs went back 30 years. Some of them were dated on the back in his handwriting. March 1989, July 1995, December 2003. Each one a little knife slipped between my ribs. I sat on the floor of his office, my office now, I suppose, though I don't know what I'll ever use it for, and I laughed. It came out harsh and broken like a cough, like my body was trying to expel something rotten that had been festering inside me for too long. All those years, all those signs I ignored, all those moments I chose comfort over truth. And for what? For this. For sitting alone on a hardwood floor at 73, surrounded by evidence of my own willful blindness, realizing I'd traded my entire life for the illusion of stability. People will tell you that staying for the wrong reasons is understandable, that you did the best you could, that women of our generation didn't have the options you young ones do now. Don't believe them. I had options. I had dozens of them. I had every single Tuesday and Thursday and Sunday for 47 years to choose differently, to choose myself, to walk out that door and never look back. But I didn't. And you want to know why? Because I was afraid of being alone. So instead, I spent 5 decades being lonely. And there's a difference. Being alone is a circumstance. Being lonely is a choice you make every morning when you wake up next to someone who's already gone. I can't get those years back. I can't undo the silence. I can't rewrite the ending. I'm 73 years old with arthritis in my hands and a heart that works just fine physically, but stopped knowing how to hope somewhere around 1989. So here's what I need you to hear, whoever you are watching this. If you're waiting for someone to change, stop. They won't. And every day you spend waiting is a day you're choosing their potential over your reality. Every day is a day you're killing a future version of yourself who deserved better. I spent 47 years waiting for him to see me, to choose me, to become the man he'd promised to be under that dogwood tree when we were young and stupid and thought love was enough. It wasn't enough. And neither was I, apparently. But the cruelest joke, I was always enough. I just gave my enough to someone who'd already decided I wasn't worth the effort of change. Last night, I took off my wedding ring for the first time in 52 years. The skin underneath is pale and indented like a scar. It doesn't quite fit right anymore. My fingers are thinner now, bonier, but I'd kept wearing it anyway. Habit, stubbornness, fear of the empty space it would leave behind. I dropped it in the drawer with his photographs and letters, closed it, walked away. I don't know who I am without that ring, without that house, without that life I built on lies and silence and wasted time. But I'm 73 years old, and I've finally run out of years to waste. Some lessons come too late to save you. This is one of them.